Hi everyone. I don't know why every time I do this, like it's just a little bit different in terms of what you can see in the background, but that's a little better. So, chapter 13, we're going to talk more about decision making, and basically looking at all the concerns about, not concerns, but issues about like people, as we've talked about before, are spoiled by choice. So let's take a look at some of the things we're going to learn about. Understand the difference between evaluative criteria and determinant criteria. There you go, that's a little better. Comprehend how value affects the evaluation of alternatives. Value, of course, is the two goals of marketing are create value for customers and build strong relationships. And so this whole idea of what value is, what, just as a reminder here, when people are making a decision to buy something, value is what they're interested in. Value is their goal. So explain the importance of product categorization and the evaluation of alternative processes, and distinguish between compensatory and non-compensatory rules that guide consumer choice. Yikes, that's like a lot of stuff, but we're going to go through. So evaluative criteria, there are things that people think about, like what do they evaluate? What criteria do they use to evaluate whether or not they want something or not? And it's like to evaluate different solutions to a problem. How am I going to get my college degree? Am I going to go to a 2-year school and then a 4-year school? Am I going to do it, while I work? Like, what are my other options? All my options. So feature the performance characteristics of an object. What does it do for me? The favorable results is the benefit, and then the value is what you get, the benefits that you get, less what you have to give up for costs. So we're talking about ABC approach to attitudes. We talk about this also in our organizational behavior class. It's kind of a psychology bent theory, but criteria that are most carefully considered and directly related to the actual choice that's made. So we're going to talk about. We're going to go through and talk about those. They're the attributes that determine whether or not we're going to buy something, and also it depends upon the situation, how the product's going to be concerned, so how it's going to be consumed. So what's the purpose of the product? Like, what's the goal? How is the user going to use it? So product, feature, and benefit, we'll take a look at these. So smartphone, the feature might be the screen size, the benefit is easy viewing. Garage door opener, the feature might be programmable code, the benefit is security. You can go through those. That's the idea of looking at the feature and the benefits. So value and alternative evaluation. So those are different criteria that people use evaluate a product. So again, we go back to this hedonic criteria versus the utilitarian criteria. What is it they're looking for? If you need a hotel, you're going to stay at a Motel 6 versus a high-end luxury hotel. What is it that you're looking for? And how does that compare to the other product that you're thinking about getting? So here we go. So we look at utilitarian versus hedonic criteria. So on the one hand, you have a Nissan. They're looking at, it's a family car. They're looking at gas mileage, safety ratings. And then the alpha is this, much more appealing, sexy ad, prepare to be seduced. That's the idea. That's like looking at the criteria. What is it that's more luxurious or speaks more to your senses? All right, so we talked a little bit about this before, this idea of bounded rationality, that we want to act rationally, but we can't, because bounded rationality, the idea consumers attempt to act rationally within their information processing constraints. And we try to do that. We truly do try to do that. Everyone tries to be as rational as possible, because being rational is considered a positive in our society. But the fact is that we are biased, we have emotion, we have feeling about things. So it's hard to act completely rationally about things. And we try, and consumers, generally speaking, we don't want to spend a lot of time looking at different types of alternatives, and so you try to minimize that. That's the same kind of thing with the it's kind of in conflict with the being rational, being able to, if you are too super rational, you would spend a lot of time researching that kind of thing. So attractiveness of alternatives impacts the satisfaction. So you can look at whether or not, I guess it kind of comes down to expectation, like how much do you expect from a product? So if a product isn't really very attractive, but you get it, or attractive to you, but you get it and you love it, then it's going to probably increase satisfaction, if that makes sense. Then the reverse as well. Kind of reverse psychology. So affect-based evaluation, it's the evaluation where consumers evaluate products based on the overall feeling. So it's not so much about what the how do you feel about that alternative being presented to you? How does it? Do you just have a good feeling about it? Do you have a good vibe on it? Does it make you feel satisfied and proud and all that kind of things? And what is it that you're looking for? Why do you want to buy something because just to mix it up and have some variety? So the emotions and the moods and all that kind of thing. All these things play into your decision. So attribute-based evaluation, alternatives are evaluated across a set of attributes that are considered relevant to the purchase related situation. So talking about like the cell phone, the size of the screen, the storage capacity, how much it's going to cost you monthly to have a contract on the phone, how much is the phone going to actually cost, service contract, accessibility contract, all those kinds of things. So you look at things that what's more important to you, range or whatever. Okay, so this idea of rational decision-making assumes that consumers are careful while integrating information about product attributes and making comparisons. So this is the assumption. Rational decision-making, this is the assumption that people are rational and very careful. But, and sometimes they are, sometimes we are, sometimes we're not. Some people are more so than others. So it sort of depends. But this idea, it's important to understand this idea of rationality and bounded rationality when it comes to decision making. So there's different types of product categories that we'll talk about. It's a mental representation of stored knowledge about groups of products. So you might view pre-made foods in one way, or you might view organic food in a different way, or you might view clothing bought at fast fashion, that's like categorical feeling about a product. So superordinate, which means they are above all else. It tends to be abstract in nature. We sort of abstract. They're abstract concepts. We sort of look at them in this large level of categorization kind of thing. Subordinate are things that are lower, things that are more mundane, I guess, more detailed. They consumers they actually look at what they're examine the knowledge they have stored about various options. They try to understand that. And evaluations, generally speaking, are more relevant and meaningful because of the fact that they're more tied to reality or the current situation. Not necessarily reality, but the current situation. So superordinate and subordinate. So beverages, for example. Superordinate would be the beverages. Then subordinate are the cola, sports drinks, juices, and then going down at each feature after that. Okay, perceptual and underlying attributes. So there's perceptual attributes, things that we see as easily recognizable. We can interpret quickly. They're something that's very apparent about someone, and from that we make these conclusions. So they're just top of mind things we understand about the product. Then the underlying are not necessarily things that are super evident, but we only gain that experience through actually using the product or you actually having the product. So, you'll see something, you buy a pair of shoes and you bring them home and you realize, they would look good, they felt pretty good at the store, but now that I'm wearing them, I realize that they don't fit me as very well. Or now that I'm wearing them, I realize that, wow, these are super high quality and I feel so good on my feet after a whole day. So that kind of things. Things that are apparent or not apparent. Apparent only after time. So again, perception, underlying attributes. Signal, that's something that one thing about a product will tell you another thing about a product. So you might say, you buy a jacket or something and you think it has a good quality zipper, that makes you believe that the rest of the product is good quality as well. Or you say that, these are made by, sneakers made by Puma, well then they must be really good quality. There's all sorts of things. Color, feel, brand name, price, those things, the retailer, reputation, all these things that are just right out there that we make assumptions about add to our perception, understanding about a product. So again, we've talked a little bit about this before. Factors influencing the type of criteria used. So you have situational influences. So depending upon the mood or the time, you might evaluate things differently, how much you know about the product. Social influences, what your friends and your family members are saying about it, or your colleagues. Expert opinions, what is it that people, like, quote unquote, in the field know about it? So if you're looking for a certain type of golf equipment or something like that, what is it that golfers say about it? Expert opinions, online sources, blogs, vlogs, customer reviews, and then marketing communications, the ads that are sent out, the ads that you read that tell you about the product. All of those things will tell you. So if car companies will tell you that gas mileage is important because we have low gas mileage. Well, and I'm making this up. Well, maybe gas mileage isn't important because all cars have the same level of gas mileage. All cars in the market. So what is it that people are telling you that you're supposed to be concerned about? So you want to make sure you control the information that you're giving your consumers on the marketing side. So consumer judgments essentially is how accurate are people's evaluation, and that's one thing that people are really interested in. Marketers are really interested in. They want to understand what the difference is between how the customer perceives your product and how the product really is. So they might perceive, for example, the food at Chipotle to be not healthy. Perhaps a perception that's gotten out there. So the job of the marketer is to tell people, no, actually the food at Chipotle is very healthy, so you should buy it. So somehow they need to change their marketing message. And as I said, I'm making that up. That's just an example. But the trick is you want to make sure that whatever your customer's perception is, or your evaluation is of your product, it is what is true about your product. So you can people make judgments about all sorts of things. That's just the way it is. How they compare to other products, what features are available, the benefits, that kind of stuff. Okay, so also consumer judgments, attribute correlation. So quality perceptions, brand name associations, consumer personality. What is the personality of the consumer? We talked about these before. The just noticeable difference. How is it that this product is just a little bit different? How is this car how is the Ford car just a little bit different than the Honda, that kind of thing, or the previous model? So it's easy when you've got one attribute to compare it to, but when you have multiple attributes to compare it to, you need to understand. It's more difficult for the consumer. That's why, again, marketers need to understand what is most important to the consumer when they're buying a product. What is it most important to a consumer when they're buying a vacuum cleaner? When they're buying a couch? When they're buying a telescope? When they're buying a camera or a phone or, a prom dress? Whatever it is, what is it that's most important to them? And then, when you get that information, then you adjust your communication accordingly. So, and if people find that out through surveys, warranty registrations, focus groups, whatever. Marketers want to find out what's going on in the head of the consumer. Again, so they can match up consumer perception with reality of the product, and also they can, match up what the communication is. Okay, so compensatory and non-compensatory rules that within products. Compensatory rules allows consumers to select products that may perform poorly on one criteria by compensating for the poor performance by good performance on another. So, although the car has really good safety ratings and gas mileage, well, maybe the stereo isn't as important, isn't as high quality. So it's okay. I'm going to deal with the fact that the stereo isn't as good, isn't as good. Or maybe the color isn't what I want, or, whatever it may be. Or, I don't have a sunroof. It's more important for me to have a safe car with low gas mileage. That's compensatory rule. Non-compensatory rule, strict guidelines are set prior to selection, and any option that does not meet the guidelines is eliminated from consideration. So I will not get a vacuum cleaner that requires a bag. That's just the way it is. I will not buy a couch that's made of a light color fabric. No matter how comfortable it is, I'm not getting a white couch. So one is like compensatory is like, yeah, I'm willing to trade some stuff off here. Non-compensatory is like, nope, this is a deal breaker. I'm only going on vacation to an all-in-one resort. Deal breaker, I'm only going on vacation to a place where I can, have my own little bungalow or whatever. So categories of non-compensatory decision-making. Conjunctive rule, option selected must surpass the minimum cutoff across certain relatives. So basically, like, it has to meet minimum requirements. Disjunctive, it has high requirements. And lexicographic rule, that the option selected is thought to perform best on the most important attribute. So if you are looking for a car with the highest safety ratings, you're only going to take the ones with the high safety rating, that kind of thing. All right, so non-compensatory decision rules also eliminate by aspect. So basically, they set minimum cutoff points, and they start to get rid of things based on those, unless unless a piece of, a sweater is made of at least, more than 60% wool, I'm not wearing it. And then they go through, it's like you make a list. So what's important to you, and you tick off those lists. Again, what we are concerned about is, as a marketers, is trying to understand what those rules are so that we can communicate that and satisfy the customer's needs. So there are a variety of different ways that people use these rules. Non-compensatory rules are used in low involvement and high involvement situations. So, it could be even like anything from toothpaste to a new washer dryer. Consumers can combine decision rules in order to arrive at a final decision. So it's kind of like a game of Twister. Sometimes these matter, sometimes these don't matter. Lexicographic rule is commonly used, just to remind you, the lexicographic rule is that option selected is thought to perform best on the most important attribute. Comparisons are made mentally without the strict use of a mathematical formula. So people think about this in their head. Some people write stuff down, some people don't. So you want to think about that. I think it depends upon the person's personality and also how big the decision is. So also retail outlet selection is very important, and customers have become brand loyal and store loyal. You'll see that with grocery stores. You see it certainly with people's morning coffee selection. You'll see it with people are either a Target or a Walmart person. People are either a Macy's or a Penny's person. In Western New York, Target or Tops or Wegmans. So that kind of thing. Gradually become less brand loyal and more store loyal. Objective and subjective criteria, let's go back to that. A lot of that also is because of the services that are provided with different stores, and also, store atmosphere, which we talked about in the previous chapter, store atmosphere, services, availability of the store, cleanliness of the store, that kind of thing. It's actually about the experience. It's not just about the brand, it's more about the experience of shopping. So objective and subjective criteria influence the choice of retail outlet. So objective, of course, is without bias, and subjective, of course, is with bias. Retail outlet, product variety, store image, location, service. Consumers enjoy the convenience and selection offered by online shopping. There's no doubt about that. That's why so many retailers have both a physical presence and an online presence. So let's say we refer to it as click and mortar. So all of these things, and people have been trying to, adjust to that as we go along. And then, so the summary, wrapping it up with decision making. Evaluating alternative solutions to problems is an important part of decision making. There's no doubt about that, because we need to know that we're spending our time and money on what's going to make us create the most value for us. Perceived value of a product has an indirect impact on the consumer's evaluation of the product, which we talked about with perception. Product categories are mental representations of stored knowledge about the groups of products, so there's subordinate and subordinate. And then compensatory rules and non-compensatory rules are used while selecting products. So which is, it's a weighing, like up and down weighing of looking at the scales, two scales of what attributes and qualities are better than might be for others. So, okay, so that wraps up chapter 13. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you back here for 14.